Alright, it's time for the Miami Grand Prix Observations 2023 edition. The working title for this one is going to be the Atomized Perez, Stroll Goes Missing, and the Filler Seat. We shall see if that makes it to YouTube. Now, this Grand Prix was an interesting but busy, right? It was a busy race. We had a very busy race. Lots of overtaking this way, that way. Of course, Maximilian Verstappen climbing back up the grid. Sir Lewis Hamilton climbing back up the grid. But it wasn't interesting because, well, there wasn't really any jeopardy. And we'll get into why that is. But anyway, let's get this started. First thing I actually want to talk about is the circuit itself. This time around, there's no chatter about the surface breaking up or what have you. Just complaints on race day of there being little grip. Mind you, I haven't actually watched the full weekend, so was there minimal grip all weekend? No, that's not what was reported in qualifying, and we had rain overnight from Saturday to Sunday. But I digress. They've altered that Miami that little piece of work chicane that I dubbed the Miami Complex. They've altered it a bit. I do not agree with the alterations. I don't like them. Why don't I like them? Because it simplifies a piece of the track, a very difficult piece of track, fiddly piece of track for the drivers. But oh well, it probably led to more overtaking just on account of that alteration. Who knows? And of course, commentary was running its chatter about the DRS zone being shortened. And well, it painted some events in the race. Well, it painted Maximilian Verstappen's climb through the grid in one particular way, but I digress. No real noise about the circuit this time around. But anyway. Alright, on to Red Bull. Well, Perez now finds himself isolated at Red Bull. Perez is the atomized man at Red Bull. So I have dubbed him the Atomized Perez. It's very interesting coming off of last season where he was putting out fires for the team and playing the rear gunner for Maximilian Verstappen. It's quite interesting seeing the disloyalty from Red Bull, just on account of Perez having some ambition. So Perez has now been atomized at Red Bull. What do I mean by atomized? I mean he's isolated. You can probably search for a video on the YouTubes, the modern library of Alexandria, on the atomized man. This is the situation Perez is finding himself in at Red Bull. He's not physically isolated because, well, there's people around him, but he's been atomized, and so all lines of communication are actually shut off from him. Or to visualize it to visualize it properly, right? It's like Red Bull. The Red Bull team is water and Perez is oil, and he's found himself in there somehow. He's a drop of oil, and so he can't actually interact with the Red Bull team right now, right? Commentary made note that Anthony Davidson made note that, well, no one was giving Perez any updates on what the gaps between him and Maximilian Verstappen were, what the pace differential was, and all of that. No one was giving him any notes. He was essentially driving blind. It would be one thing if the radio wasn't working. Now, of course, Christian Horner does. He obviously claims the opposite, that he's been informed of what the gap is with each lap. Perhaps Perez just felt defeated. Who knows? But I mean, look, the way Maximilian Verstappen was lapping on those hard tires, I mean, Perez should have been able to do something similar. Should have been able to. And those tires did what, 47 laps? 46 laps? Yeah, they did 47 full laps. Come on now. Come on now. Like, you got to be able to push the tires a little bit harder than that. Maximilian is doing what he's doing in the other car. Now, of course, I've just said Perez is atomized, so who knows? They might not have even set up his car or some shit. Who knows? Who knows? Only the people inside Red Bull. No, I'd love to be a fly on the wall, but that's not the type of access we get just yet. Well, you kind of do, but it's curated and it's set back a year or whatever with the whole Drive to Survive thing. Anyway, so why was Verstappen so fast here in Miami? Well, he was probably driving angry after qualifying, after the close crash, and he fluffed his first qualifying lap. He had to start down the grid. Does he have to drive that angry? I don't think so. Not with the DRS train beater that is the Red Bull, right? You don't really have to be that angry about it, because you're gonna move up the grid, especially with the whole rocket DRS so going on over there. You're gonna move up the grid regardless. Doubly so when teams have to put on a lot of downforce, high downforce setup required at Miami. So, and we've got the formula, right? Everyone likes to complain about the formula this way and that way, but really, like, folks, everyone wanted more overtaking. I didn't want more overtaking, but everyone wanted more overtaking. Oh, they want the cars to be able to follow close and all of that. The formula does it. Really, it does it. It really does it well. The problem, as I always say, is that, well, if someone builds a really fantastic car and it's easier to overtake in the best car, well, that's just how the cookie crumbles. So, back to Verstappen, Maximilian driving angry after qualifying. I made sure he can flex that if he wanted to. It's more of just I suppose it's more of a flex to just Perez himself, but Perez has been atomized by Red Bull, so is it really a flex? Who knows? Because, we got the Maximilian. I fucking wish they'd just dim the Maximilian Verstappen radio. Mind you, they advertise their Sky Glass every Grand Prix, right? Ooh, Sky Glass customers can get on board with any driver they want, and you get to hear the onboards. Anthony Davidson was listening for the onboards the whole Grand Prix. He didn't hear no radio. He didn't hear no radio going Perez's way. So, could he be exaggerating? Probably. It was, they give Perez the minimum. Oh, the gap is now 17.6 seconds. Oh, the gap is now 16.4 seconds. The very minimum. Not informing him about what times Maximilian is lapping at, or even trying to G him up and say, hey, drive faster. That's kind of the engineer's job on some level. You're supposed to get your driver to drive as fast as they can. It's supposed to be motivational on some level, but, well, the Atomized Perez, he doesn't get that. It's like you take two different elements. Which elements simply don't mix? Like royal elements or something. You take your hydrogen and something else. I forget the periodic table by now. But you take two elements on the far right. Red Bull is one of them. The whole Red Bull org, and Maximilian Verstappen was one of them, and Perez is another. And they will not mix with anything. So Perez has found himself atomized at Red Bull, and Maximilian is going to grab some optics, I suppose, to those who would be fooled. But anyway, Maximilian, he has driven well, right? At the end of the day, he has driven well. The car is what it is. I'm not particularly sure how to evaluate a lot of his overtakes because, well, a lot of the guys are just stepping out of his way. And even to their own detriment. I don't know what was it, Ocon or Gasly? It was Gasly. I don't know what Gasly was doing when he was being overtaken by Maximilian Verstappen, but at that point you're just hurting your own race. You're hurting your own efforts. If the objective is not to fight him, then sure, you don't fight him, but you drive your line because he's got rocket ship DRS over there on his RB19. He's gonna drive past you anyway. Just drive your line. It's kind of like WEC is going on, right? I should probably talk about something that's emerged in the whole WEC scene. But WEC is going on. Right? Like go to WEC and different classes, right? Different classes of cars. When one of it's not LMPs anymore, but when one of the LMPs is going past the GT2 car, the GT2 car, you're not supposed to be trying to weave out of his way. You're gonna cause a fucking accident doing that, homeboy. You're supposed to just stick on your line. He's so fast in the prototype that he's gonna fly past you, bro. He is going to fly past you. Supercars, that's what they got now. Although the supercars are just not quite LMP. Oh, LMP1 is like peak technical endurance cars. But anyway, oh man, we'll never have that again. Fascinating. But yeah, the Red Bull is so fast that, okay, sure, Brundle can say on commentary that, oh, the driver's probably been told, don't even fight him, just let him by, or just let him ease by because he's got rocket ship. He's got the whole. What do you even call their DRS, bro? I really wonder, what do you even call it? It's like a cheat button at this point. It's like cheat, but these men were comparing Maximilian Verstappen's race to fucking easy mode AI on the F1. Come on now, you can't be doing that on air. Slow down. Slow the fuck down, commentary. But like, sure, okay, the drivers can be told, oh, don't get in his way, but or just don't fight him because you're just gonna lose time doing so. The drivers can be told, don't fight him because you're just gonna lose time doing so. But one, it's gonna make the optics goofy, and two, some of these bros just don't know how to. Some of these bros just don't know how to make shit easy for themselves. But anyway, it's very weird talking about Red Bull this season, especially when they start somewhere down the grid. It's just very strange because they've got access to something, and you'll probably find, if the algorithm will probably throw it your way, no doubt, but you'll probably find chatter going into every Grand Prix of like, oh, this team has got a DRS upgrade, or that team has got a DRS upgrade. You'll probably hear shit like that coming throughout the season. And to be frank with you, it's not actually a DRS. If I'm to take B Sport seriously on what he says in regards to how this whole DRS, how Red Bull's DRS may be working, then it's not quite as simple as, oh, just bring a DRS upgrade, because you have to have jigged it, you have to have done a magic on your floor. And no one can do that. No one has that knowledge. No one has that understanding. No one has that ingenuity. One thing or the other. But anyway, we'll see what happens with this whole, with the season. Very weird season we are about to witness. On to Aston Martin. And Fernando Alonso has had a standard Sunday. You could say it was made a bit exciting because he had to get past Sainz at some point, what have you. He's had a very standard Sunday. This is what's going to be. This is the expected pecking order, right? We're back to Bahrain, and it's been Bahrain most Grand Prix, really. For the top three, at least, it's been Bahrain for most Grand Prix. And as we head into more traditional circuits, we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, standard Sunday for Alonso. There's not really much standard weekend really for him. I suppose he got a bonus. He got to qualify on second, right? That's really as far as that goes. But otherwise, Standard Sunday for him. Stroll was out at sea though. Right, Stroll Stroll went missing over the weekend, I suppose, because the track got rained overnight. He might have been chasing a setup, and he just didn't find that setup. Right, never mind that he didn't even have the setup down for qualifying. Right, he just didn't find any setup for the weekend. Who knows? He might have tried to copy Alonso's setup, and like I said, for the Baku observations, he just don't have the fundamentals to do that. Like you don't have the feet for that. You don't have the hands, the fingers, the touch for that on the steering wheel. You don't have the sense in your backside for that, to feel the car slipping and make it correct. You don't have that. Well, you don't have it the way Alonso has it. Right, you don't have it the way a world champion has it. This is for Stroll, right? But Stroll, he just doesn't have it the way a world champion has it. So you gotta make your own setup. You can't use, everyone has to make their own setup, really. But you gotta make your own setup. You can't be copying Alonso's notes. You seen how that worked at Baku. But anyway, I'm just making an assumption here. This is me speculating that, perhaps Stroll has attempted to copy Alonso's setup and it just has not gone to spec. But yeah, Stroll, he was out at sea. Him and the team and the pit wall, they didn't know what they were racing for at some points. I'm sure, like, what position are we even trying to finish here? Alright, I'm pretty sure they just had no clue about any of that. It probably would have been expedient to pit him onto the mediums and, have him power through these cars somehow, because the Aston Martin should be able to do that. Even without the rocket DRS of the Red Bull, it should be able to do that. But oh well. Probably should have put him on the mediums sooner. But yeah, Stroll, he'll be back next weekend. Someone always benefits when... Someone's always going to benefit when someone goes missing from the top 4 teams. Right, or perhaps I should say the top 5, because Alpine is also in there. But someone's always going to benefit, so we'll see who benefited from this later. On to Mercedes. Mercedes have had mixed fortunes in qualifying again. I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes like the norm for the season. One of them qualifies outside the top 10 each weekend. I wouldn't be surprised. Depends what their upgrade brings. Right. Depends. We'll see what happens in that regard. But mixed fortunes again in qualifying. For as long as they have this car, I would expect that to be an expected outcome every Saturday, and yeah, there's not really much to do about it. It could hit Russell, it could hit Sir Lewis Hamilton. Anyone can get it. So it's neither here nor there. What are team orders supposed to look like? I wish Sir Lewis Hamilton wasn't so nice on some level, especially when George is being big-headed in Jeddah and says, he's just going to drive it like a madman or something. Because we had just gotten the radio of him saying, well, he's not going to slow down and let George pass. George must just come past him. He's not going to fight him or anything. Just DRS it, bro. So that didn't happen because he had to get off the throttle. Of course, you give it a little stab of throttle going into this hairpin that's at the back end of the circuit. Is it a double hairpin? 1, 2, yeah, it's a double hairpin type of situation. But of course, he would have had to get off of that dab on the throttle that drivers would do going into there. And it's too nice. Why is he so nice? I suppose when you're Sir Lewis Hamilton, when he was in the presser with the 8 rings. Yeah, I've seen that wonderful pose. But when he was in the presser with the 8 rings, like it's a subliminal. He's dishing out subliminals to F1 and FOM. Like, yeah, I got the 8 rings. I know what I have. They know what all of them are there behind the cameras and even through the cameras, all the people at home, they know what I've got, so I bust out the 8 rings. It's the subliminal. Alright, so perhaps he's just being so nice because he knows, we know, everyone knows. Ted definitely knows, right? Ted Kravitz, he definitely knows. Right? But anyway, perhaps he's being so nice because he's Sir Lewis Hamilton. It's too nice for me. Really too nice. What will team orders actually look like at Merc? Well, they won't have team orders when they have. Well, I say that, but they will still have some team orders. It's just one goes hunting to see what they can find. If they don't hunt, if they don't have a successful hunt, then places get swapped. Same thing that would have happened when they were peaking. But anyway, this has been discussed before on this channel. As always. Otherwise, George was pretty gracious about it. He did say thank you, and I mean, Sir Lewis Hamilton is smart enough to know that he's fighting all the way. He's fighting back up the grid from 13th, right? They're not exactly in the same Grand Prix, so go hunting, George. I'll make things easier for you. And Sir Lewis Hamilton probably thought to himself he'll grab a few straights of DRS. All's well that ends well. All's well that ends well. But at the end of the day, this car is the concept. They could have switched this coming into the season, right? They could have ditched this whole thing, repackaged the internals of the car for the whole situation, redesigned the radiators even, so you can probably run the engine harder and be more reliable, right? They could have done a whole raft of things, but well, they decided to stick with the zero pods. Well, we'll see what they bring. Toto's now having the heat turned on him. He's having to talk a lot in the media about new cars and all of that. He's having the heat turned up on him. It's his baby at the end of the day. And this is Toto's baby at the end of the day. He is the big boss man there at Mercedes. You're supposed to tell them, look, this zero pods thing was a hot mess last season. Bin it. He was supposed to do that. Didn't do that. Okay. Alright. Worst case scenario happened. Here came an Aston Martin. It could have been any team, right? It could have been McLaren. It could have been the Haas, one of the other teams with a different engine. It could have been anyone. It could have been anyone that came in with something spanking new for this season, and boom, they just found themselves ahead of the. They found themselves reliably ahead of the Ferraris and Mercedes. It could have been anyone that this happened with, but well, it was Aston Martin. Oh well. Customer team. Oh well. Would there be this much noise if it were perhaps McLaren? I don't know. Remains to be seen. Remains to be seen. But yeah, stuck with the zero pods. Big boss Toto. He said run it. And well, this is what you're working with, homeboy. This what you're working with. As you were. So onto Ferrari. Well, of course Leclerc's had his crash in qualifying, and now the narrative behind him of him making mistakes and key moments. Now it's a solid narrative, but all the same, would he be driving this hard if the car were faster? Who knows? It was funny watching it because he had made the mistake 2 corners back, but he tried to stick with the lap anyway, and it went wrong. And it went wrong. Would he be driving the car like this if it were faster? Probably not. But well, if you're in with a shout at a specific weekend of perhaps finding your way onto the front row of the grid, yeah, you're probably gonna give it a bit extra. Maybe even give it the 103%, who knows? But you'll probably give it a bit extra if you are Charlie Leclerc. And well, it might go wrong. Oh well. You see, Ferrari, these things don't actually matter to Ferrari, even despite the budget cap, because Leclerc is too good as a driving talent to let go. Right, he's too good relative to the rest of the grid. The rest of the grid, right? Relative to the rest of the grid, he's too good to let go. There's things they can do to coach him and rein him in that way. I even get him a driver coach if you must, right? But there's things they could do to rein him in at key moments like that. But on a raw talent level, you're just not getting rid of him. Right? Especially when the rookies that have come in this year are really having a trial by fire. Especially when the highly rated rookies that have come in this season are really having a trial by fire. So no matter how good the driver is probably going to look in GP2, calling it GP2 here, but in Formula 2, no matter how good the driver's going to look in Formula 2, at the end of the day, it's only when the rubber meets the road and in the Formula 1 machinery that you're going to know how good the driver is in Formula 1. Right? And Leclerc, we've seen how good he is. Right? He just needs to be reined in, tamed a bit here and there. He's got some rough edges, you can smooth them out a bit. And Leclerc will probably smooth them out himself, to be frank with you. that really painted his weekend from there on. Right, he got into some altercation in the middle of the field and fell back, and it was that was a Sunday. He had a decent race fighting back, but yeah, that was pretty much his Sunday. And Sainz, onto Sainz. Sainz is filling a seat. Right, at this point, Sainz is filling a seat. Is he good enough for the Ferrari second driver's seat? Depends what Ferrari actually want to do with that seat. If they want a rear gunner for Leclerc, then sure, you can keep Sainz. If they want another shot in the chamber for a championship, you can't keep Sainz. You can't keep Sainz. If you had George Russell or Perez or Alonso, or heck, Vettel or Raikkonen before they bowed out formally. If you had one of these in the second seat at Ferrari for last season, what happens? Right, probably get some real heat put on the Red Bulls. Ferrari probably managed to put some real heat onto Red Bull, and who knows, Maximilian, he might have gotten flustered here or there. Because last season's Perez, he wouldn't have been able to keep up. Right, he wouldn't have been able to keep up. Now this season, Perez has found a new level of form, and like I said with the Red Bull portion of this video, there's some sabotage going on that even commentary has had to pick up on now. Right, there's some sabotage going on at Red Bull that even commentators had to pick up on, because they can hear it on the subscription service. They can hear it, or to be more specific, they can't hear it. But yeah, Sainz is filling a seat. It doesn't help that he's sped in the pit lane too. It's a bit awkward that the pit lane speed limit is before that chicane going into it. It's a bit awkward, but anyway, if that's how it is, that's how it is. But yeah, it doesn't help that he sped in the pit lane too, and he's picked up this 5-second penalty. And it doesn't help that it's just not been going Sainz's way. Though, like I said before, he might just be a slow starter. He might just be a slow starter. Although, I do believe if he was racing at Alpine, he would be getting the maximum results for that car. Right, I do believe that. Why am I saying that? Because he wouldn't necessarily be racing against the likes of George Russell, Sir Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso, Max Millen. He wouldn't be racing against these men. Right? He would be in no man's land and be attempting to finish in the top 10. And there'd just be far fewer eyes on him. Right? Fishbowl Ferrari over here. Everyone got eyes on it. Whether you are or are not a Ferrari fan, you're probably a Ferrari fan because it kind of matters who's there. It kind of matters who is at the most storied F1 team in its history, right? It probably matters who's there. And Sainz, he's just not it, unfortunately. He is filling a seat here until someone else proves to be viable for the seat. Really. But anyway, Alpine. Onto Alpine. They've gotten their expected finish. There's not really much to say about Alpine. Yes, there's been, like I said, it was a busy race. Yes, there's been overtaking this way and that way. But everyone's essentially, aside from Stroll, everyone's essentially finished where they were expected to finish, plus minus one position. Right? And I suppose that's another problem with an overtake happy formula. That's one other problem to consider. In that the cars at most circuits are going to be separated by make, by constructor. That's just the way it goes. If you want to have like really mixed results, then you probably need to make overtaking more difficult and qualifying more valuable. You see, Maximilian, he qualifies 9th, he wins the Grand Prix. Qualifying don't really matter. So Lewis Hamilton, he's 13th, he comes back to finish round about where you would expect the car to finish. Right, the only one that's the only one that hasn't managed it is Stroll. But yeah, Alpine, this is an expected finish. There's not really much to say about Alpine. Even if they might have had some complications on Saturday or whatever, there's not really much to say about Alpine. There's more to say about what it means about the formula itself, and about what actually caving to fan desires and requests actually means. You know, if you're the boss of F1, Chase Carey, let's call him Jim Carrey, got him, but Chase Carey, John C. Malone, what have you, Ross Brawn and friends, you are supposed to be the all-seeing eye. Whether, you know, the people don't know what they want, they're on the ground. Right, they're on the ground and y'all out there in your ivory towers, you can see the landscape stretching out in all the directions. Because, of course, the analog to it is they're privy to information that none of us on the ground could ever be privy to. But because, well, you can see all the things coming, and you've got well, what is essentially perfect knowledge relative to all of us observers down here at ground level. You're supposed to see this stuff coming. Right? Now, ideally, you'd like every lap to be the first lap, the cars to be separated by nothing, right? Ideally. And the drivers to be separated by nothing. That would be ideal. Then every lap could be the first lap. Oh my god, look how close all the cars are. Although you probably have a mega DRS train going on forever. But there'd still be things that happen. Believe that. I mean, the first lap at Miami is very exciting on that back straight. On the back straight heading to the finish, heading to the start-finish straight. As a very... if the cars, you know, I'm kind of using that as a barometer for how well the cars can follow every time they go through the first long straight on the circuit, right? And we get a stationary camera and you get all the cars zooming by, boom, 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 you know. Or maybe a not so stationary camera, but you still see all the cars coming by, and they're all a lot closer to each other than they would have been in the 90s or the 2000s, even the 80s, you know, they're all much closer to each other than they would have been back then. But anyway, even with that, field spread still happens, and well, everyone falls where they're supposed to fall at the end of the Grand Prix. Alpine finished exactly where they were supposed to finish, all things considered. On to Haas, and it's Kevin Magnussen that has filled Stroll's missing spot. And I mean, he's put together some good. He was the most exciting part of the Grand Prix. Quite frankly, you know, how high can Kevin Magnussen finish? It was going to be out of the top 10 if Stroll was on it, but that was the most exciting part of the Grand Prix, really. Right, and why is that? Because he's out of position after qualifying. He's somewhere he's not supposed to be. If overtaking was harder, who knows? Magnussen might have found himself finishing 5th or 6th. Right, if overtaking was harder. But, well, overtaking has been made systematically easier. So, well, so it's all about the car now. It's all about the car now, and well, you might find someone off form. Right, you probably got to find someone off form on the day. Sometimes it's going to be the Alpines that are off form. Sometimes it's going to be a Ferrari, a Mercedes, an Aston Martin. It will never be the Red Bulls. One of them has to retire. So, fun little formula we've cooked up for ourselves here. But I digress. Hulkenberg, he was stuck in the field. He couldn't actually find a way through. Stuck in a DRS train. The DRS trains are weird because sometimes it's an agreement between. It's an unwritten agreement, right? They didn't even handshake on it. But sometimes it's just an agreement between the lead driver and the following driver to just use each other as a tow. Right, that's all it really is, the DRS train. Other times it's a bit fishy and there's a fix-in. Other times it's really a bit fishy and there's something of a fix-in. But anyway, I have to bust open the MK Ultra files again if I go into that. But otherwise, Hulkenberg, he was stuck in the field, couldn't find his way through. That was his Grand Prix, really. That was his Grand Prix. It's the, you know, on some level, it's just luck of the draw with the midfield. unless you're one of the rookies or McLaren, right? It's just luck of the draw. On to AlphaTauri. De Vries is struggling with the other rookies. I should probably just talk about the rookies in isolated segments, in the sundry observations. But De Vries is struggling along with the other rookies, and well, I'll get to why that is later in the video. I really will get to why that is later in the video. Otherwise, Tsunoda, you know, what is up with Tsunoda this season? He either finishes 11th or 10th. Can't finish nowhere else. Right, maybe he'll crash out next Grand Prix. I now jinxed him or some shit. Maybe he crashes out next Grand Prix, but if he's finishing, he's gonna either be 11th or 10th. Can probably make good money betting on him throughout the season. He's done it at all the circuits now. So, what's the last type of circuit we're waiting for, really? A high-speed circuit with low downforce setup. That's the last thing we're waiting for. But this AlphaTauri will probably do the same thing at Monza. Actually, no. It actually might not. But it'll be different by then. Everyone will have upgrades and what have you. But yeah, as things stand, put some money on Tsunoda finishing either 11th or 10th. He's gonna do it. He's gonna do it. One of those two. It's like a guaranteed roulette roll. On to Alfa Romeo, Bottas and Zhou. They're working with scraps right now. There's not really much to say about Alfa Romeo. there's not really much to say. Of course, the team is trying to improve the car, make it quicker, what have you. And of course, the drivers are, when so given the opportunity, of course the drivers are going pedal to the metal. They're going flat out, of course, but it's not doing anything. Now, I've spoken about the shape of the car in previous observations, and until they do something with the car, I just don't see them. They have to have a race with high attrition to get some points. Right? Otherwise, I just don't see them doing anything for the whole season. The whole season. Get lucky to score points or score nothing. Of course, now it's F1. Anything can happen. All of a sudden, they're gonna be comfortably in the top 10 for a Grand Prix. I strongly doubt it, but hey, anything can happen. This is why I said I hope the fashion side at Alfa Romeo is on fire this season, because, well, there ain't really much else to talk about. Perhaps I go to find the resources for this video, the images and what have you, and oh my god, I have to go and record a little bit about, oh, look at this sick kit that Alfa Romeo have dropped or something. Best case scenario. Otherwise, ain't nothing happening at Alfa. They're waiting for Audi, right? They're doing all of Audi's research right now, and we'll see what Audi do when they do formally enter F1. Oh, we'll see just what they do. They did say that they wanted to be winning from the very first season, right? So, all right, here's what I suppose is gonna happen, right? Alfa Romeo will be absolutely nowhere this season. Next season, they will push Alpine out the top 10, and then when Audi formally come in, they will be challenging for either podiums or wins. Perhaps not regularly, but challenging for either podiums or wins. It will be Audi by then. But we'll see what happens. That's what Audi wants to happen. We'll see what happens. Williams, onto Williams. Is the Williams only good at low downforce circuits? Perhaps. Probably. It's funny, they've been trying to get their car away from that characteristic for, well, since before these regulations even came in. So they've been trying to do it for over half a decade, I suppose. And their car still has it. Their car is still a bit of a low downforce jockey. And, well, I don't know what exactly that means for Mercedes and the zero part. How far this DNA carries. I don't know what exactly that means for them, but yeah, here are Williams. Sometimes Albon might threaten to get into the top 10, low downforce circuits. I suppose you could put good money on Albon finishing in the top 8 at Monza. I wouldn't even say top 10, like put him in the top 8 at Monza. See what happens. But Monza's a long way from now. Anyway, not much to address with Williams. I suppose they have 2 finishes, and I will be addressing the rookies at the end of this video. Alright, on to McLaren, and McLaren must be asking themselves, where to from here? Where to from here for McLaren? Because their car is so volatile, you can't predict where they're going to finish any given weekend. Although you could probably comfortably predict them to finish outside the top 15. You could probably comfortably predict that, pending attrition, retirements and what have you, pending all of that. But otherwise, where do McLaren go from here? The car's trash. It's an advertising board. It was really an advertising board before an F1 car. And, well, you supposedly have 2 great talents with you in Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, and, well, they're gonna fetch interest. they're gonna fetch interest, but you know, they're not gonna like the optics from this season, the pair of them. I tell you that much. But yeah, this is where McLaren are at right now. What will their upgrades do? Who knows? Everyone be bringing upgrades, so who knows? We'll see what happens when we land at Monaco or Spain, when people so intend to bring their upgrades. Otherwise, there's not really much to say about McLaren. I mean, they're just, with their car being so bad, they're just a victim of the formula. But otherwise, I'll expand on that when I talk about the rookies. Alright, onto some sundry observations. So, say I've seen an interesting scenario happen in Wake. And I said I was going to talk about it, so I got to talk about it. They have gotten rid of tyre blankets in Wake, and I'm not sure who was on commentary. Was it Anthony Davidson? I'm not sure who exactly it was on commentary for that Wake race at Spa. I believe it was Anthony Davidson, don't quote me on that. But there was a situation where the Toyota, Brendan Hartley's Toyota, came out of the pits, tires were too cold, and this also happened with one of the AF Corsa Ferraris. Came out of the pits, tires were too cold, and because of the ambient conditions of the circuit, it was difficult to heat up the tires. Irrespective of no tire blankets, right? It was difficult to heat up the tires, right? So even with tire blankets, you would have had a difficult time heating up the tires given the actual track conditions. And well, a few accidents and near incidents occurred because the tires were cold. Putting cold tires on a racing machine while a live race is going on. I mean, you can do that for the show in America, but things run different in Europe, I'll tell you that. So, no tire blankets in Wick. I believe it was Anthony Davidson on commentary. He said, well, now that the foam is coming in, you should probably consider reversing this rule. And so, we swing this back to F1, and there's a push to get rid of tire blankets. And so, if the WEC cars, if the endurance cars are having a difficult time, and they weigh more, right? Well, actually, the F1 cars weigh a shit ton now as well. But if the endurance cars are having a difficult time switching on the tires, what's going to happen with the F1 cars? It's anyone's guess, really. It's anyone's guess, but oh well. They're making a push to remove tire blankets, and they've done the thing in WEC, and we're now getting foam, and the foam ain't good. And the foam, it is not good. There's a reason that tire blankets are necessary. I mean, if you're a hobbyist, you can get tire blankets, right? If you're just if I could order tire blankets if I so had a car that I could go to a circuit with and pound around a racetrack, right? Or even a motorbike. I myself could order tire blankets. They're available to the general populace, right? They are available to the general populace. Suppose the F1 ones are not inexpensive because they're high tech, but they're inexpensive. They are inexpensive for what they actually are. So for tire blankets to be removed, it's not really about the cost saving or anything. There's something else there. It's actually linked to the whole net zero 2030 thing, because they don't want to spend energy. They don't want to spend energy on warming up tires with tire blankets, and it actually ties into the net zero 2030 that they're putting up on their fucking displays on their title card going into every Grand Prix. Anyway, so no tire blankets. This whole idea is gonna be scrapped a lot sooner than people think. We'll see what happens at Le Mans. If Lamar is spooky because there are no tire blankets, F1 will scrap this rule. They won't do it. They won't have the gumption to follow through on it and see what happens. Alright, some people might say, oh, it'll be easier in the F1 cars because they've got all this mega downforce. Well, okay, that's not what the drivers say. All of them. Alright, a Sir Lewis Hamilton and a Maximilian Verstappen agree on a thing. You probably should probably listen at that point. But anyway, the last talking point for this video, the rookies versus the formula, right? Right now, because overtaking is as easy as it is, we are in a formula where you have to drive the car to its maximum delta, or you will simply flounder. Right, you have to achieve whatever the maximum that your car can achieve. If you fail to achieve that, then the rookies are out here learning how to do that. If you fail to achieve that, you get overtaken by everyone. Why do you get overtaken by everyone? Because overtaking is easy. Overtaking is that. Never mind how easy overtaking is if you're in the Red Bull. Right, overtaking in general, if you can get away from a DRS train, it's easy. It is easy. Why is it easy? Because the formula itself makes it easy. This is the formula people wanted. This is the formula the fans wanted, right? Wanted the cars to follow closer, more overtaking, more competition. Well, there's costs to that. All right, it would be a different thing if we were, if these regulations are 2022 to some. It would be a different thing if we're in 2028. They're still running these regulations, and they're slated to stay for 2 more seasons, maybe even 4 more seasons, going to 2030 or 2032. It would be one thing if they were struggling like this then, because the cars would be separated by much less. Right, I mean, the whole field would probably be within a second of each other, right, quite frankly. But because, well, we threw some new regulations onto the formula, we threw some new regulations onto F1. These regulations come with certain caveats, such as overtaking being easier, such as it being a make formula. What do I mean by a make formula? I mean that, like I've said earlier in the video, the cars are separated by constructor more often than not, because overtaking is so easy. A circuit where this won't be a thing is Monaco, because it's hard to overtake at Monaco organically, right? Regardless of how easy the cars itself is going to make it, it's going to be hard to overtake at Monaco just on account of the nature of the circuit. So at Monaco, you might get some mixed up results because someone did a wonder in qualifying, right? You might get some mixed up results in Monaco, but that is not going to carry over to any other Grand Prix. And the same is going to stand for the rookies until they actually learn how to actually race in these cars, right? It's one thing you can bust it out for a lap or something. Putting the Sunday together, going lap for lap for lap for lap, is a different thing. It's a completely different thing, and all the rookies are having a very difficult time with it. If they do find themselves somewhere in the pack where they get to encounter some action, they're probably being swamped 9 times out of 10, well, 8 times out of 10, because, well, all the experienced drivers, they've got the consistency. They keep going lap after lap after lap at the set, because they even have the knowledge, right? Zhou, when he was a rookie, he didn't have this knowledge, but no one really had knowledge of this formula. So, and likewise, he's the only rookie, so there's no real comparison, right? There's no real comparison for him. He was actually given the harder situation, but everyone was learning the formula. Right now, you've got experienced drivers, some veterans on the grid. And they have taken lessons from last season in regards to how this formula works, this formula of F1, how this formula works, and now they're executing it on these rookies. And these rookies, they're getting flamed up most weekends. They can't actually cut it just yet because they just don't know. They don't know yet. Right? They just don't know. Same thing is probably going to happen with the Yumu Wasa when he does get into the car at AlphaTauri, right? De Vries is having the heat turned up on him by Dr. Marco. And he's telling him to get on the pace. Dr. Marco. Someone near you is going to hear this video, right? We ain't separated by all that many degrees of separation right now. We're under 2. It's 1.6 degrees of separation, but anyway. So, Dr. Marco, right? You have eyes. You can see that this formula is not kind to rookies, right? You're probably going to bring in a Yumu Wasa. Same thing's going to happen with him. Suddenly you gotta sack him. Get someone else. Who then? Liam Lawson? I mean, we can run that. I mean, you can run that if you so want to, but one, that's going to be very volatile. 2, you're looking for a needle in a haystack. You're not actually looking to develop a driver. You're just looking for another Maximilian, another Sebastian Vettel. You're looking for one of these. And if one of these doesn't crop up, or something even close to them, like Daniel Ricciardo or a Carlos Sainz. Mind you, Carlos Sainz has mostly gotten in on account of the name. All right, you got the Sainz. You got a Sainz in your car. All right, it's different now. It's different, regardless of what happens, whether he becomes the number 1 driver or whether whoever's next to him is better. You've got the Sainz name over there. To anyone who knows, right? Carlos Sainz Sr., a rally world champion and what have you, rally extraordinaire. But it was way easier to rookie back then. You're a rookie now. Well, you're out at sea, and the results are gonna show it. I've been wondering this season, why are the rookies so out at sea? Why are none of them able to actually have a good time of the formula? Well, it's because the formula is just, this is how the optics are going to be. It's just not exactly going to give them an opportunity to learn and get serviceable. You have to have multiple times world champion potential to jump into the car your first season and be mixing it with all the veterans who are 1 year wiser in this formula, right? And they'll be 2 years wiser next season and so on. But yeah, the rookies versus this formula, yeah, they're not having a good time. They're not having a good time. This is what learning is going to look like now. This is what learning is going to look like. I mean, heck, I suppose among the rookies themselves, Piastri, Sargent, and De Vries, alright, they had their own little race at the back of the grid. Well, at the back of Miami, and, well, Piastri won it. Piastri, De Vries, Sargent, that's the order. And you would expect something like that. You would expect them themselves to be ordered in that fashion if you were just looking at them if you were just looking at them and where they finished in the Grand Prix, right? If one finished 9th, another finished 13th, another finished 18th, or whatever, you would expect them to be in that order. But yeah, they just stuck having their own little race at the back of the Grand Prix, learning amongst themselves. And if they're in the middle of the pack somewhere, they get shuffled back because, well, all the elder statesmen are just gonna force their way by, with knowledge that the rookies are gathering. I was talking about like there's no rookies in F1 for the Baku, for the Azerbaijan observations, and there aren't from a driving standpoint, right? From a fundamentals of racing driving standpoint, there are no rookies. No one has to come in and learn how to feel turbulence of the other cars and what have you, right? It's not like the drivers are talked through the start of a Grand Prix, right? When the drivers don't collide at the start of a Grand Prix, and you know they got the Hans device going on, they can't exactly give a hard look to the left or the right, and sometimes cars just sit in each other's blind spots and they don't collide. I've spoken about this before. Some esoterica for the drivers. They're feeling each other's turbulence. The only reason they're not taking that space over there is because, oh, I can feel some turbulence buffeting onto my car. Must mean there's a car there to my left or my right, wherever I'm feeling this turbulence. Through the seat of my pants. Right? But I mean the rookies have that as well. But it's a different thing to put the Sunday together. And they're having a difficult time doing so. Oh well. It's happening to all of them, alright, collectively. It would be one thing if it was just, oh, Sargent is out at sea, oh, it's De Vries out at sea, oh, it's Piastri out at sea, although who knows, Piastri might be doing better if the McLaren were better. Alright, but anyway. The same could probably stand for all of them. They'd all be doing better if the cars were better. But anyway, that should be the vid. I do believe Perez, the atomized man, will make it into the title. Some other parts, perhaps not. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Hell breezy. Let me show you how to keep the dice rolling when you're doing that thing over there. Hey. Let's go! Cause I'm feeling like I'm running and I'm feeling like I gotta get away. Better know that I don't and I won't ever stop. Cause you know I gotta win every day. Go! See, you really wanna pop me. Go! Just know that you will never flop me. And I know that I gotta be a little cocky. Go! You ain't never gonna stop me. Every time I come a nigga gotta set it, then I gotta go, and then I gotta get it, then I gotta blow, and then I gotta shut it. Any little thing a nigga think that he be doing, cause it doesn't matter, cause I'm gonna dead it. Then I'm gonna murder everything and anything about it. Boom, about a bing. I gotta do a lot of things to make it clearer to a couple niggas that I always win, and then I gotta get it again and again and again. And I be doing it to death, and now I move a little foul. Nigga better call a rap, and everybody know my style. Niggas know that I'm the best when it comes to doing this, and I be banging on my chest, and I'm banging in the east, and I'm banging in the west, and I kinda give you more, and I would never give you less. You will hear it in the street, and you can read it in the press. Do you really wanna know what's next? Let's go. See the way we on it, and we all up in the race, and you know we gotta try to keep up with the pace, and we struggling and hustling to set it, and to get it, and we always gotta do it, take it to another place, gotta taste it, and I gotta grab it, and I gotta cut